Dystopia warning, obviously. Just wall-to-wall dystopia, innit? 24/7, 365. Bet you're even thinking, what's this absolute jeb end doing? Even bothering with a dystopia warning anymore. But I've got a bit of unprecedented news. But nowadays, unprecedented political events are not necessarily unprecedented. What? I'm here today to tell you about our Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, aka the Send Them Home Secretary, literally inciting riots. It's a laugh, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I always imagined, our eventual descent into anarchy would be better than this. I'm disappointed. I mean, we meet most of the key definitions. There's no organisation. There's, arguably too much control, but there's definitely no effective government. My various fantasies of things just, setting on fire over the last 3 years, I always thought we'd have the upper hand to some extent. That you'd have a wicked soundtrack, better clothes, more Molotovs. But instead we're watching the downfall of British politics, and it's shit somehow. So what's going on then? Well, as I told you the other day, Suella Braverman has been describing the pro-Palestinian marches as hate rallies. Now, her alongside her client journalist mates have been stoking tensions and divisions all week. This boils down on Suella Braverman's part to one really important point that I think that you need to know. This is all motivated by her own naked political ambition. What I reckon she's possibly gunning for is to take over the Conservative Party when they eventually get trounced in a landslide at the next general election. She is obviously hijacking Remembrance Day and Armistice Day for her own political gain. And in doing so, she might as well walk up to the cenotaph, pull down her trousers and curl one out. Because on the weekend, where we remember those who fought and lost their lives to ensure that people were free from persecution based on their race, on their religion, she's seeing it as a perfect opportunity to stoke division and encourage the far right. Yeah. Thanks to her and her client journalist mates talking absolute bollocks, poppy sellers that are not facing any real threat whatsoever are too afraid, in many cases, to go out and sell their poppies because of fake news stories put out by the Mail. According to statements by the police, there's no real evidence of it actually happening. They're putting out headlines like this. If there was a riot at the cenotaph, whose fault do you think that would be? Well, I don't know, perhaps the person that's been trying to pit communities against each other, using a horrific conflict for political point scoring. I mean, I've dealt with a lot over the last 3 years, yeah. But this is beyond anything that I've ever seen before. This is extremely dangerous, not least because in the days since Sunak met with Elon Musk, aka the space incel that ruined Twitter, guess who's been allowed to have his platform back? Just in time, actually, for all this to kick off. Tommy Robinson. He's resurfaced in the last couple of days like a dank shite that won't flush, hasn't he? Looking like a Weatherspoon's groper and talking like a 1950s wife beater. Calling on his pork army, the EDL, the far right, to protect the cenotaph. What kind of backwards world are we living in? His mates were doing the Sig Heil in front of the cenotaph at the Black Lives Matter protests. I mean, I'm personally not threatened by any of them. They're all lunch no punch, literally. Most of them haven't even seen their own knobs in a decade. Could barely even manage a light jog. But their intent is obvious, their motivations are obvious. It's very clear that they're taking their lead from the Home Secretary's rhetoric. So what have we learned so far then? That our Home Secretary is hijacking and desecrating Remembrance Day, a time when we remember those who lost their lives fighting the far right, by encouraging the far right to attack a group of people based on their skin colour and their religion. The entire Conservative Party is riddled with Islamophobia. You've just got to look at their National Conservatism Conference. You've just got to look at Johnson referring to women in burqas as letterboxes and bank robbers. That ET-looking freak on a leash spoke at that conference. Fellow speakers at the event were those that called for abortion to be banned and have said that life should be made harder for Muslims. And it was run by a US right-wing think tank. You see, I don't think that Suella Braverman is simply nicking her policy ideas from Fox News. No, I think she's going for her own Trump-style insurrection. She's trying to make all the little EDL lot her Proud Boys. Now, I know that I razzed the police in my previous video, but dear God, they're doing their best to deal with her. They're actually handling this well. Because she wrote a piece for The Times last night that was literally the only way you can describe it is batshit. She compared the Palestinian marches to the situation in Northern Ireland. She simultaneously insulted the police, threatened them, and then accused them of being woke. Fuck me. I mean, firstly, I have no idea why the Times are giving her a slot in which to incite, but here we go. We're in hell. Sunak didn't actually clear her article. No. But she did it anyway, which is a breach of ministerial code. You see, neither Suella Braverman or the government generally are happy about the police not just doing whatever they want them to do. They don't have a say in whether or not people are able to protest. It's got nothing to do with them. Bearing in mind that also previous armistice days haven't called for a complete shutdown in London. Football matches have gone ahead. Other protests have gone ahead. But what's the reason why this government is so opposed to it? It's basically because they don't want a bunch of brown Muslim people marching for a ceasefire because they know that that's the only moral reaction to what's happening in Gaza. Braverman has been seeding this for years. You see the difference in how people of different skin colours from different parts of the world are treated, especially when it comes to things like asylum. Now, I've learnt a number of shocking, terrifying phrases during my time of covering politics. One is democide, which I learned during the pandemic because the government were committing it. Now I've had to learn what stochastic terrorism means. And let's face it, with the man that firebombed the detention centre in Dover, that could be described as stochastic terrorism. She's committing it, or likely to. We'll see, won't we? Even Liz Truss got rid of Braverman. And there's two reasons why Sunak is failing to act on this. Either one, he believes it and he's happy to go along with it, or two, he's too weak and too self-interested in his position as Prime Minister and doesn't want her sneaking in, that he's willing to allow a national security risk to be our Home Secretary. He's too busy, walking around schools, mumbling about smoking bans whilst, kids are stabbing each other up. There's one very important thing for everyone to remember about her and about this government. They're not real patriots. They're hijacking powerful symbols like, the Union flag, Remembrance Day, for their own selfish, frankly fascistic aims. Know your enemy.